Joining me now are two SMU English Department alumni representing different decades and different career paths. So first I want to hear your name, when you graduated, and what you're doing now.
My name is Ashley Park. I graduated in 2017, and I am a donor relations officer at Communities Foundation of Texas.
Fantastic. And yourself, sir?
Hi, I'm Jonathan Childers. I graduated from undergrad in 2002, and I am a business trial lawyer and partner at a law firm here in town called Lynn, Pinker, Hurst, and Schwegman.
So two very different career paths that started from the English department. John, I'll start with you in asking this. When we think about English and your education that you received during that time, and where you are now, how has it influenced? How has that education gotten to you to where you are?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of being a trial lawyer, a business trial lawyer, is being able to tell a good narrative to a judge or a jury, and that's both in the form of writing, but it's also in the form of oral argument. And so I think in the law, what's critical is to focus on really two concepts, relevance and prioritization. And my experience as an English major really helped me with both of those, including in, of course, writing a lot of papers, but in structuring information and analyzing things. And also as a lawyer, you really have to be able to see things not only from your client's perspective, but the other sides. And so I think I was able to do that as English through things like the critical theory and those types of courses where you were able to dissect the same text but looking from different perspectives. That helped me as a lawyer.
That makes absolute sense. And Ashley, for you, explain exactly what you do. You're working with donors, you're asking for money, which is not an easy thing to do.
Yes.
How does storytelling allow you to connect with individuals, to get their investment, their buy-in, and also for them to feel really good about that?
Yeah. So in my job, I work with donors, individuals, families, businesses, and it's really about hearing their story and seeing, what they want to accomplish in their philanthropic giving. So it's really explaining to them who we are, what we do in the community, and then finding that common ground and having sort of a values alignment of whether we can help them in their philanthropic journey and telling a story with their legacy, with their gift, in the way that they feel comfortable.
So when you're actually listening to these individuals and they tell you what's important to them, and then you tell the story of what this partnership could bring to them, how do you see the needle move when that happens?
Sure. I mean, it's one of those things where you just have to listen to where they're coming from and what their motivations are, what their values are, and figure out a way that you can steward their gift properly and also provide a service that is meaningful for them and is providing a lasting legacy for them to share onto their children, to their family, and their community.
So, John, it makes sense to me, but if you are out at a dinner party and you say to somebody, I was an English major, and this has been instrumental in my professional legal career, what's their reaction?
I don't think they'd be surprised. A lot of lawyers are humanities majors or particularly English majors, at least with one of the degrees. And I think it is because I really think English is just so foundational. If you're able to read and write and communicate, no matter the age, those are essential skills to convincing people or advocacy. And advocacy is what I do and what lawyers do.
Especially when you're working with juries. You are connecting to these 12 individuals for them to understand your client's point of view.
Right.
I was asking you this off camera, a time where your ability to tell the story of your client's human experience, where you believe that is the thing that really moved the needle in that case. Can you give us an example?
Right. Well, so much of a jury it's beyond the law. By the time something's at a jury, you've already shown the judge that it should be there, and then at that point, it is who is convincing and who, from any set of facts, will the jury believe is the most credible and is telling the truth. And so I think organizing information, telling it in a credible way, being strong both substantively and in the aspects of how you deliver the information is everything. People can spot phonies, people can spot people who may seem like they're telling a story but are too slick about it. And so I think it's a delicate balance between being substantively strong but also delivering things in a credible way.
So we talked about storytelling to a jury. Everyday folks that have been called to be jurors. When you're doing this with a judge, how do you alter the way you approach storytelling?
Sure. With the judge, I would say it's more of a narrative than a story because the judge, they want information very quickly. They're busy people, and so they want you to cut right to it. And so what I learned from English is how to prioritize things. We do something in our writing or in our advocacy that I call the summary of the argument, which is instead of a 30-page brief, say you only know that the judge is going to have 2 minutes to read your brief before they get up there. Well, you want to say everything in the first 2 paragraphs that encapsulates your whole point and why you should win. So when you're arguing with a judge, or I should say advocating to a judge, you want to be quick, you want to be right, you want to be fast, you want to be credible.
Ashley, for you, when you're talking about what the Communities Foundation of Texas does, how do you tell that story? Because your organization does so much.
Yes.
So do you have to edit almost and key in on the thing that's going to resonate with the individual in front of you? How important is editing when it comes to storytelling in your position?
Yeah, so Communities Foundation of Texas does do a lot of different things in the community. Sometimes I'm even surprised. I'm like, I didn't even know we did that. But it all depends on, what your messaging is, depending on your audience, right? So if I'm talking to a donor, I'm gonna change my pitch a little bit to what they want to hear. If I'm talking to someone who doesn't know our work very well, I'm going to change my message to what they want to hear. So yeah, it's a little bit of editing and pivoting what your message is depending on what your audience is.
John, we're talking about storytelling, English in a bigger sense, but I want to talk about SMU.
Sure.
Your experience here. Tell me a little bit about that, and specifically whether it's a certain professor or a course, the gift that gave you that you carry to this day.
Well, I remember a lot of my English professors. I remember Professor Holohan, who taught Shakespeare, and then I remember Professor Spiegelman, who taught Elizabethan, several classes about, the classics and then also poetry. My take for SMU English is this. You learn a lot in the classroom, but the real gift is you also learn about a lot in directly talking with your professors outside of the classroom, in office hours or in other settings. And I think that is a unique offering that SMU English has, that it had it when I was there and it still has it today. So it's a genuine connection to learn both inside and outside of the classroom, and the discussion carries on after the class session is over. I think that's true, and it's such a unique offering.
And it's not hyperbole to say that experience continues to inform the man you are today.
I think so. I think that, for Shakespeare, for example, that's the story of being a human. And
Yes.
so much of telling a good narrative in a court or a jury, it's a human experience. I deal with breaches of fiduciary duty, with torts, with contracts, with tortious interference. Yes, it's important to know who breached and why, but a good lawyer will put that in the context of human emotion or drama, so it's not dry text. It is a story of right and wrong, or who harmed who and why. And so I think when you're able to say, this is how it's affected someone's life, this is how it's affected their business, here's how they're harmed, here's why they can't sleep at night, here's why they don't pay themselves, but they still pay their employees and they're barely trying to hold on. That's what moves needles, and that's what drives verdicts.
Ashley, for you, your experience here interacting with the professors, with the coursework, with the overall community of SMU, specifically within the English department, how has it informed the woman you are today?
I loved all of my professors at all of my English classes. Professor Brownderville, Professor Wheeler, medieval literature. I am still a lifelong reader. I am in 2 book clubs. I think after you graduate, there's definitely a period of time where you're like, I have read so much, I do not want to see another book. But that sort of practice of reading, I think is a sort of a lost art form, but it definitely stayed with me. And I love reading different perspectives, whether it be a memoir, fiction, science fantasy. I'm able to comprehend and keep the habit of reading, which I think is so important these days.
Any advice to anybody? Did you want to say something
Well, I
about
was just
John?
going to say something to Hannah. I think what's also neat about English as being a lawyer and how it's helped me is my job, I can be a generalist sometimes. So my job is to take things to a jury. And so within that, you get a phone call with someone who has a unique problem, and you may not know a whole lot about their business.
Yeah.
So I've become an expert on the parts inside of a piece of oil and gas equipment. I've become an expert on complex financial instruments. I've become an expert on oil and gas accounting. It's not to say when I go to pose an expert that I know as much about that person, but I have read up about it, I've learned quickly, and I can engage in questioning with someone. And I think a lot of that has come from a foundation in English and liberal arts, where it's enabled me to have an analytical approach where I can quickly learn something, and then go toe to toe with somebody on it for a couple of hours. I may not know as much about it as a lifetime, but it enables you to get in, get the information quickly, and do what you need to do.
I just have a few more questions. Do you think there's an element of studying English or the humanities that teaches you to ask the right questions? Because I think asking questions actually is a part of storytelling, because you're hearing somebody else's story. How has that impacted your ability to ask the right questions and become that expert in all these different fields?
Well, I'm not an expert in any field, but I will say that asking the right questions is everything, because that is the jury question.
Yeah.
That is also what's on the judge's mind. And so I think that if you're able to articulate or find out what's really going on, what's really driving a decision, even if it's not being said, if you're able to hone in on that and then really give the answer, then that's a powerful thing, and it's very effective. I mean, it's the difference between winning and losing.
Ashley, this is my final question. I'll pose it to both of you. I'll start with you, Ashley. If you could write a thank you note to the English department of SMU, and that note is going to be delivered in this conversation right now, what would you want this institution to know about how it has impacted you?
Man, that's a good question. It's really the people that make up the department that I have the most gratitude towards. I know a lot of people, a lot of students who take SMU courses or English courses in specific, we all go to professor office hours, and they are the most encouraging people. They will encourage you. I mean, I don't really love speaking out in, public, or I'm not really like a big talker, but I know a lot of my English professors really motivated me, inspired me to share more, because we do all have very important things in our minds that we like to share. We have ideas that are worth sharing. And I know a lot of the English professors are just great at sort of picking all the good things about you and displaying them, and really encouraging you to do more with the English degree.
John, same final question to you.
I would say that it made me a better thinker, and it made me a better writer. I think that English was the first time that I had professors who would really, I would come back with red marks on my papers about, hey, here's how you can do this better. And that was invaluable, because I certainly got that as an associate of law firm. As I clerked for federal judge, I got it from my federal judge. And so I thought it was a great foundational experience to becoming working on my thinking and my writing. And that's what I would tell them. And also just the relationships developed where they gave you the confidence to develop as a writer and a thinker, and both inside and outside the classroom.
It's fascinating to see the same education, where it can take people throughout their lives in the world. Thank you both so much for the conversation today.
Thank you.
To find out how you can apply an English degree in so many ways of life, go to smu.edu/English stories.